Anybody out there suffering from a breakup or suffering in a relationship, this message is for you. I want you to really consider that what you might be holding on to is not love. What you might be holding on to is the avoidance of abandonment. When you're avoiding abandonment, you start to personalize the bad behaviors of someone else and you make that about yourself. That the avoidance of abandonment becomes the glue of the relationship where somebody is trying to attain the feelings that they got at the beginning. And at the beginning of this relationships, you started to form your understanding of the person naturally, right? Like as we get to know somebody, we become comfortable. But consider the way in which you know that person has been constantly compared to the reality of that person, and you've been holding on to that ideal person. You see, you want to bring out the best in them. You want to believe that this is a good person, and you want to work on the bad parts. You want to fix that part. You want to make them happy. And you might be interpreting their bad behavior as having something to do with you. Your mental health might have been declining in this relationship. And this can be a very insidious process that is very difficult for you to see from the inside. And what that means is that when someone acts in a way that makes you responsible for their sadness, if it triggers you, and when I mean trigger is the activation of an emotion from the past that improperly informs your mind of the present. You see, if you feel like you're not good enough and you're trying to improve yourself, you might even interpret your declining mental well being as more indication that there's something going on with you that's affecting the relationship. And you might be putting in a lot of work. See, you might see this relationship as a connection, and you interpret your experience as their experience. Like when you have these emotions like you're not enough, see, you might actually falsely think that this other person is having the same relationship that you are. And that is where you're wrong, because you might be being gaslit and manipulated. If your mental well being started on a high note and it's been declining in the relationship, and your feelings are not important to the other person or are the basis of them thinking that you're crazy, that you're not doing something right, that there's something that you're not providing, whether it's believing in them, whether it's trying to make them happy. You see, you want to look at objective reality here. Who you are is not subject to someone else's emotional changes. You're in need of acknowledgement. You see, acknowledgement is not external validation. Acknowledgement strikes at your intention. You see, if you're using your mind to try to do good things for someone, that needs to be acknowledged, and that is the most important thing for someone to have. Someone that would be using their mind and developing themselves to better the relationship. For example, let's just say you wanted to bake some brownies for the first time from scratch for somebody. Now, imagine you serve them these brownies and you're nervous because you put all this work, you got the recipe together, you're really excited and nervous, you're shopping and you're thinking about how happy it's going to make them. And then they eat the brownie and suddenly they get a little upset. And they tell you, that's terrible. Gosh. Oh, if you really cared about me, you would have just done a little bit better. See, what they did is they devalued you and negated you. Somebody that recognizes you will not be a victim. They will acknowledge and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for thinking about me and making the brownies. You did such a good job. Is this the first time you made them? Wow. The only thing I would say is maybe, don't put so much sugar. You see, All it really is in life is you want to deal with reality. Manipulators blame you for reality. They make you responsible for their emotions, good and bad, but you're not. You see, you're responsible for the things you do. Some people do not have the ability to distinguish who you are and the things that you do. And what that means is that you're only a good person if you make them happy in this moment, and then they're the victim if you don't. And you will be running on a treadmill because you cannot make that person happy. What you'll notice is that you'll see that you're declining, but your declining is because you're slowly giving up on yourself. You see, if you're using your creative mind to try to better someone else, to try to help them, to try to believe in them, to try to give them ideas, to try to cheer them up, to try to make life better, you're not going to fix, change, or help anybody doing that. You're not responsible for somebody else's problems. If somebody has a total terror of abandonment and they're manipulative and they're putting you down and they negate you, negation looks like someone that's always no, 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 no. Nothing you do is ever right. They're not ever interested in you. When you talk about yourself, they listen briefly, and if they don't hear anything is in it for them, or they start correcting you and they do not have any ability to just listen to your experience without seemingly to disconnect, if they're rolling their eyes when you talk, you see, you might be trying to force yourself to talk. You might be trying to, anxiously now share yourself. And you see, this is going to have an insidious effect on you. Why? Because you're going to be burning other people out in your life, because you're going to start to feel like you're crazy. You're going to start to feel like nobody listens to you. You're going to feel misunderstood, invisible, and that you don't matter. And why would you feel that? Because this person is undermining you. You see, if you're dealing with somebody that has this grandiose victimhood mentality, nothing you do will ever be enough, because everything you do chips away at their entitlement to be the victim. Because if somebody goes through life explaining themselves as the victim, they will not be able to be okay with somebody loving and generous. And so if you're declining in the relationship, it's very easy for you to think that your declining is causing the relationship problems. You see, you might actually notice that you're trying to hide dark feelings, or you're sleepwalking through life a little more. Notice if when you're driving places, if you're pulling up to their house, for example, and you're sitting in your car and you might be echoing conversations from work, you might be thinking about what you're going to say, you might be thinking about, oh my gosh, I hope they don't notice this thing. You see, somebody that devalues you is going to put you on eggshells, because everything you do will be scrutinized and it'll be random, because you won't know. Because you see, if this person can just wake up in a bad mood and then everything you do is wrong, 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 start to notice that that's having an effect on you. You see, you may not have made the connection between their negations of you. You might start to feel like you really want them to believe in you, because you're going to start to feel invisible, because they're going to get control by just ignoring you in a subtle way, never really showing you that they understand what you're saying. They will feign confusion. They will also feign incompetence, meaning like they will come to you like they don't understand things in their own world, and they'll milk you for attention, but they will not reciprocate that. And so not only will they exhaust you by draining you, by having you be responsible for helping them, they will be argumentative anytime you actually try to give them any meaningful insight. And they will be totally unaccountable. And so you need to know that you might be inside of a period of time of devaluation in a relationship that can end up destroying your life. And if you're ruminating over a past relationship that went like this, you just have some triggers that are stuck on. That those feelings of abandonment, not good enough, those are not real. And you got to let them go. You're going to have to just let it go and forgive yourself. And that is what I do with my coaching. It takes one single conversation to set yourself free from rumination for the rest of your life.